The winter air hung heavy over the small American town, the kind of cold that didn't just touch the skin, it settled deep in the bones. Streetlights glowed softly along the empty road, casting long, lonely shadows that stretched across the sidewalk like forgotten memories. Inside a quiet apartment above an old grocery store, Emily Carter, age 32, sat alone at the edge of her bed, staring at a single message glowing on her cracked phone screen. "We need to talk." Those 4 words had a weight she had carried for years. 4 words that had followed her from childhood to adulthood. 4 words that always came before something broke. But tonight, they felt different. Tonight, they felt final. Emily tightened her grip around the phone, her fingers trembling. The room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of a street lamp outside her window. The wallpaper, old and peeling, looked like it had witnessed years of secrets, her struggles, her quiet suffering. For years, she had been the one holding everyone together. The reliable daughter, the supportive partner, the quiet friend who never asked for anything yet gave everything. But life had a strange way of breaking the people who hid their pain the best. She stood up slowly, the wooden floor creaking beneath her steps. The apartment was small, too small for all the emotions she had buried inside its walls. The sink still had dishes from the night before. The heater made a low rattling sound, struggling to warm the cold air. And on the table near the window lay a shoebox of memories, pictures, letters, fragments of a life that felt both close and unbearably distant. Emily walked toward it with hesitation. Her heart knew what was inside. Her hands feared touching it again. She opened the box gently. Inside was a photo, her younger self standing beside her father in front of their old home in Ohio. She was 10 years old, smiling wide, the kind of smile a child wore before the world taught them otherwise. Her father had his hand on her shoulder, but his eyes carried a sadness she never understood back then. She understood it now. Emily traced the edge of the photograph with her thumb. That home was gone. Her father was gone. And somewhere along the way, a part of her had gone too. A soft knock broke the silence. Emily froze. Another knock. Gentle, uncertain, as if the person behind it wasn't sure they deserved to be there. Emily opened the door. Standing in the dim hallway was Michael, the man she had loved for 6 years, the man who had slowly slipped away from her without ever saying why. His eyes were tired, his hands were cold, and in that brief second, Emily knew everything had changed. "Can we talk?" Michael asked softly. Emily stepped back, letting him in, her breath shaky, her heart pounding with a fear she wasn't ready to face. He sat on the couch, the same couch where they had laughed, dreamed, and planned a life that had slowly crumbled. Emily remained standing, unsure if she had the strength to sit beside him. Michael looked down at his hands. "Emily, I'm sorry," he said quietly. Those words cut deeper than she expected. Because she knew what came next. She had always known. "I don't know how to do this anymore," he continued. "I don't know how to stay, and I don't know how to leave without hurting you." Emily swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "Then why did you come tonight?" He lifted his eyes full of regret, eyes full of something she couldn't read anymore. "Because I needed you to know, you didn't do anything wrong." Her chest tightened painfully, because sometimes, that was the worst kind of goodbye. A goodbye without blame, a goodbye without reason, a goodbye that simply happened because life had a way of breaking things that were never meant to break. Emily's hands shook as she sat on the edge of the couch. "Michael, just tell me, is this really the end?" Silence. Cold, heavy silence. The kind that answers without words. A tear slipped from the corner of her eye. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, trembling tear that carried years of love, fear, sacrifice, and unspoken pain. Michael reached out as if to comfort her, and then pulled his hand back, as if he no longer had the right. Emily stood up slowly. "If you're leaving," she said softly, "just don't pretend it's because this wasn't real." Michael's voice broke. "It was real. You were the best thing that ever happened to me." Then why wasn't it enough? She didn't ask. Her heart already knew the answer. Sometimes, love breaks not because it's weak, but because the people carrying it are too tired to keep fighting. Emily opened the door. Michael took one last look at her, as if memorizing the face of the person he once believed he would spend forever with. And then, he stepped out. The door clicked shut. The sound echoed through the apartment like a final heartbeat. Emily stood frozen, her breath unsteady, her world quiet, too quiet. And for the first time in years, she felt what it meant to truly be alone. The night grew colder, but Emma kept walking down that empty highway as if her feet knew the way even when her heart didn't. Cars passed by, but no one stopped. Her hands were trembling, not because of the cold, but because of the thousand memories crashing inside her chest. She kept hearing her father's last voicemail. The one she never answered. The one she regretted the most. Each echo of that message felt heavier tonight. As she walked, the wind carried the faint smell of rain. It reminded her of childhood nights in their old house, the tiny home with the broken porch and the warm kitchen lights that never turned off. Back then life was simple. Back then the world felt safe. Back then she believed love could fix anything. But tonight she wasn't sure love had fixed anything at all. And then her phone vibrated. A single notification. "Where are you? Please come home. Mom." Emma froze. She had ignored every message the last 3 days, but something about this one felt different. Something urgent. Something frightened. She slowly sat at the edge of the highway, watching the lights of distant towns shimmer like fallen stars. And she whispered to herself, "I can't lose another parent, not again." Her breath trembled as she dialed back. A ring, another ring, and then, her mother's voice. Weak, unsteady, scared. "Emma, please, come home. I don't want to be alone tonight." Emma felt her heart drop into her stomach. For a moment she couldn't speak. Her eyes filled with tears she had been holding for years. "Mom, I'm on my way." She stood up and ran, faster than she ever had, toward the small bus stop at the end of the road. Her legs burned, her lungs felt like fire, but she kept running because that's what daughters do. They run toward the pain when they realize love was never the enemy. The bus finally arrived. She boarded quietly, sat near the window, and watched the dark horizon blur past her. The driver glanced at her but didn't ask anything. Maybe he didn't need to. Maybe her eyes already told the whole story of a girl who carried too many broken nights inside her. Minutes turned into hours, and memories into storms. She remembered how her father always said, "Life will break you to rebuild you, Emma. Don't run from the rebuilding." But that was exactly what she had done. She ran, she shut down, she locked herself away because pain felt easier than healing. The bus slowed down as it reached her hometown. A place that felt frozen in time. Same streets, same lights, same silence. When she reached the door of her childhood home, her knees almost gave out. She touched the doorknob the same way she had when she was 5, hoping for warmth on the other side. It opened. Her mother stood there, older, more fragile, eyes full of storms. They stared at each other for a long moment, both afraid the other would disappear if they blinked. Then her mother whispered, "I thought I was going to lose you too." Emma broke. Tears fell uncontrollably as she embraced her mother tighter than she had in years. Her mother's hands shook as they held her face, memorizing her as if she had been gone for a lifetime. Inside the house, nothing had changed, except the empty chair at the dining table. Her father's chair. Her mother noticed Emma staring at it. She gently touched her shoulder. "He left something for you, before he passed." Emma's breath stopped. Her mother walked to a drawer and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed from time. Her father's handwriting covered the front. "For Emma, when she's ready." Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a single letter. A letter that would change everything. She slowly unfolded the paper and began to read. The night felt heavier than usual as David walked across the silent street, his mind still struggling with the memories that refused to fade away. His past was no longer just a shadow, it had started shaping his present, reminding him that running was never truly freedom, it was only delay. He reached the small wooden bridge where the city lights melted into the water, and for a moment he paused, his hands trembling not from fear but from the weight of the truth he had finally accepted. He could not escape forever. He had to face everything he left behind, his mistakes, his guilt, and the people he once cared for. Maria had trusted him more than anyone else, and he had walked away from her without giving her the answers she deserved. He knew she was still in New York trying to hold her life together after losing her father, after losing the only stability she had ever known. David had promised to stay by her side, but promises were fragile when a person was broken from within. Tonight he knew what he had to do. He would return, not to erase his past but to rebuild what little was left. Even if she could not forgive him, he had to try at least once to stand in front of the truth and not behind it. He boarded the late-night bus leaning his head against the cold window watching the world blur into streaks of silver and black. The journey felt endless, but every mile brought him closer to what he once ran from: New York, the city of beginnings and endings, the place where he lost himself and the place where maybe he could find himself again. Maria was awake, staring at the same old photograph, the one where they stood under the Brooklyn Bridge laughing like life had no storms waiting for them. Her eyes were tired, but her heart was not. She still believed that some people, even after disappearing, were meant to return. Life had a strange way of completing unfinished stories. When David stepped off the bus, the cold wind hit his face and he remembered her words, "You cannot heal if you never stop running." He whispered to himself, "I am done running." He walked through the quiet streets towards the cafe where she worked. He remembered the doorbell, the smell of fresh coffee, the way her voice sounded when she said his name. As he reached the entrance, his heart pounded as though the entire past was fighting to break free. He pushed open the door and the soft chime echoed through the empty room. She was behind the counter, her hair tied back, her eyes focused on the papers she was reading. Maria looked up slowly, their eyes meeting for the first time in months. The air stilled, the world paused, and every unspoken word stood between them like a trembling flame. David finally spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "I am sorry. I should have never left. I was afraid of losing you, and in trying to protect you, I ended up hurting you the most." Her eyes softened, but pain still lived behind them. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You broke my trust, David. You walked away without a single explanation. How do you expect me to believe you again?" David lowered his head. "I do not expect anything. I only came to tell you the truth. Whatever happens next is your choice, not mine." Maria breathed deeply, her heart fighting between anger and longing. She had waited so long for these words, yet hearing them still hurt. But one thing was certain, she needed answers, and he was finally here to give them. "Sit," she whispered. "We talk tonight. No running, no hiding." And as they sat across from each other, the night outside slowly faded into the first light of dawn. Somewhere in the gentle hush of the morning, a broken story began trembling back to life. If this story meant something to you, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for watching.